Hello on the Rockers. Which camera? I don't even know. There we go. Hello on the Rockers. On this episode, it's all about the voice with actors and voiceover artists currently starring in the very popular Marvel's X-Men 97 series. Lenore Zann is here as Rogue from the original animated series as well. And JP Karliak bringing some non-binary goodness to Morph. Oh, hennies, we're going to talk about it all with my co-host, model musician Stephen Dehler, and me, your sassy host with the sassy most. Buttons and bows and pantyhose.
The place for too glam to give a damn. Raise a glass.
It's on the rocks.
Thank you for being
Boulevard.
Life is a banquet, and most poor suckers are starving to death.
I'd like to propose a toast.
This is On the Rocks with Alexander, where I drink with your favorite celebrities as we talk about fashion, entertainment, pop culture, reality TV, and, well, that's about it. So pop a cork, lean back, and raise a glass to On the Rocks.
Fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a bumpy night.
Lord have mercy. Welcome to the show. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok at On The Rocks On Air and on Facebook On The Rocks Radio Show. Send us an email, book us for a funeral, quinceañera, bris, pride. We don't care. We'll show up. Info at ontherocksradioshow.com. Also send us your comments, your guest request, and your guest questions.
This show is presented by Straw Hat Media. You can watch and or listen to every one of our over 400 episodes at ontherocksradioshow.com, YouTube, and on Facebook Watch. On I Love LGBTQ. That's
you don't even know the letters of your own people?
It's so
LGBTQ.
I love
LGBTQ.
gay LGBTQ. There we go.
Say it 3 times fast. I can't
even say it 1 time fast.
I can't even say BLT.
1 time fast.
BLT
Yeah,
sandwich.
Really
sandwich. So we know I'm a huge Star Trek nerd. Like we all know that.
Yeah, you are a Trekkie.
But you're a huge Marvel nerd, and you were since like a kid.
I was seeing Spider-Man on Thursday.
Yes, but like you were a big fan as a kid growing up, even before like a lot of the queer themes like made sense to you. What was it about?
Well, I was like
Marvel?
I was a 90s kid, so then
Same.
I grew up with like, like the animation that came out during that era. So we had X-Men and Spider-Man, and on the DC side we had the Batman and everything. So like I grew up with the cartoons, and then the first set of movies that came out was X-Men as well. So we were seeing the cartoons first, and then we had the live action, and it was the first like live action for me to experience at that age.
But was it like the superhero quality? Was it the quality of animation?
No, I mean,
I
think it resonated with me before I even knew why it resonated with me. I think that happens with a lot of youth that watch, X-Men and what it represents. And so then, and also just the characters, the story arcs, it just really fleshed out. I mean, the movies were really great. I love seeing, the James Marsden and a Cyclops and everything.
I think James Marsden and Cyclops.
Yeah. But yeah, no, and then, then the MCU came out and how it just blew up into this massive thing was, that was sort of like my growing up into that.
Well, we're going to talk about it all because, I'm fairly new to it and you keep explaining it.
I know, I keep trying to explain it to him, and it's like that meme where like the guys at the board and they're just kind of like all of a sudden in Philadelphia and he's just...
But it's almost like a soap opera. I was raised on soap operas, and this person knows this person, but then they're the double of this person, then that person got abducted, and it all...
reset, and then everything changes, and there's multiple timelines, There's a lot going on.
Who has time? I ain't got time for that. No, we do have time for that, especially today. We have two luminaries here. Let's introduce our guest, Lenore Zann, celebrated actress, voice performer, author, and former Canadian politician, best known to generations of Marvel fans as the iconic voice of Rogue in X-Men, the animated series, and its acclaimed revival, X-Men 97. Her portrayal of the fan-favorite mutant, known for her southern charm, fierce independence, and ability to absorb the powers and memories of others through touch, has made her one of the most enduring voices in superhero animation, spanning more than 3 decades across television, video games, and animated specials. And beyond entertainment, we're going to talk about this as well. She built an impressive political career, serving for 10 years in the Nova Scotia House of Assembly before being elected to Canada's House of Commons, where she advocated for arts, culture, education, environmental issues, and human rights. She's a respected stage, screen, and voice actress. She's also appeared in numerous film and television productions, authored the memoir A Rogue's Tale, which I started reading last night, by the way, and remains a beloved figure on the convention circuit, where her unique combination of artistic achievement, public service, and pop culture legacy continues to resonate with fans worldwide, and she looks damn good doing it. Please welcome Lenore. I feel like I have to say it like Edgar Allan Poe.
Thank you.
Lenore. Yes.
Thank you, Sugar.
Yes. Not to be undone, JP Karliak is also here, making his dramatic return to On the Rocks. He's an award-winning voice actor, comedian, and LGBTQ member, and advocate whose dynamic performances have made them one of the most sought-after talents in animation and gaming. He currently stars as the fan-favorite mutant Morph, of course, in X-Men 97, bringing new depth and representation of the shape-shifting hero while also voicing additional characters throughout the series. He further showcased his remarkable range by portraying both major villains, Gargamel and Razamel in Smurfs, and that's an interesting story how he got cast, by the way. We'll talk about it. Also, cast led by Rihanna. His extensive resume also includes iconic roles as Boss Baby, Wile E. Coyote, the Green Goblin, Loki, Willy Wonka, the Joker, numerous characters across Marvel, DC, Star Wars, anime, and the video game universes. Beyond his work behind the microphone, he's the founder and president of QueerVox, which is a nonprofit organization dedicated to training, mentoring, and advocating for LGBTQ plus voice actors while promoting authentic representation and equitable casting opportunities throughout the entertainment industry. We have a lot to talk about today. He's also the co-founder of Nerds Vote. Nerds Vote, did you hear that? A nonpartisan voter engagement initiative that mobilizes gamers, cosplayers, and pop culture fans to participate in the democratic process, which we know is very, very important. Please welcome back JP Karliak. Oh God, you look gorgeous.
Thank you. What specifically?
It's like they're voice actors and they know how to bring it. You know, sometimes you meet voice actors and like, you're like, oh God, put on a...
I mean, I'm in sweatpants from the waist down.
Well, yes. But glamorous when I'm waist up. Mm-hmm. Before we get into all things Marvel, we always like to talk a bit about origin stories. And Lenore, your memoir, A Rogue's Tale, literally has the opening chapter, My Origin Story.
Right.
Because we'd love to hear how you became who you are now, because we know all about your careers from your credits and all of that. But it's like, how did you get started? So, Lenore, we're going to start with you, because I'm fascinated. You've been all over the place. Literally, you spin the globe and like, oh, there's Lenore, there's Lenore, there's Lenore.
Yeah.
Raised in Australia, almost killed by a mega spider, which is a real story. You grew up with two amazing, strong women, your grandma and your mom, setting by example how to story tell, to be strong and have a voice. The beginning of your book, that's how you start out. Yeah. And it's so touching and it's so real. I was raised by my mom and my grandma as well. So I know very well. Feminism was very much alive in your childhood. What did you learn most from these two women that shaped who you are, that you still subscribe to every single day of your life?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. And thank you for reading my book.
Oh, yeah. I was like,
thank you so much. You know, I feel blessed that my grandmother died at 97, and she was my best friend. Yeah. So I was an only kid until I was about 12, but I had a wild imagination, and my grandmother used to tell me great stories about all kinds witches and fairies and dragons and elemental, angels and things like this. She wasn't religious, but she called herself, I asked her one time what kind of religion she had, because they always want to know in school what your religion was. And she said, I'm a pantheist, which means nature is your God. And she used to talk to the trees and the animals and the plants. She had a green thumb. She could make anything grow. And I remember her going out when I lived with her out in the country in Australia, and she would do these morning salutations naked to the sun.
Grandma, put on some clothes.
out in the bush, you know. So I'm
like,
not going to insert a joke there. There's two bushes, but but it was like amazing, and so that kind of opened up my eyes to a whole realm of possibilities. And my mother, well, she was a feminist. My father was a feminist too. And I think that is so important, because he always said, you can be anything you want to be. And one time I asked my dad, I said, were you ever sorry you didn't have any boys? And he was like, no, I love my girls. We can do anything. You can do anything you want. And so Mom always said, don't get pregnant and don't get married. And, that was her thing. When we came over to North America, I remember I was 8, And we were in San Francisco, and all the men had long flowing locks, and there were flower children, and it was like right after the summer of love. And I remember saying to my mom, because in school everybody had very short hair, the boys, and we all had to wear uniforms. It was all very British tradition in Australia. And I said to my mother, I said, Mom, all the boys look like girls. They've all got long hair. And my mother said, yes, isn't it beautiful? And again, it's like, oh, yeah, it is. You know, so I feel blessed that I had people who, they were not racist. My grandmother taught me about racism at an early age and how awful it was. LGBTQ, my dad, as a teacher, was once asked in his teaching, in his classroom, apparently, oh, you know, so-and-so's gay. One of the students said, and apparently my dad said, because my friends were there, and he said, you might as well tell me they're right-handed or left-handed. You know? Yeah. And again, I think that's so great. So I feel blessed that I was brought up in an environment like that where anything goes.
Do you think that kind of helped your acting career as well? It's like, you know, we have a bunch of lows, we have a bunch of highs, but how to keep that tough skin and just wade through it all?
I don't know if that helped that part of it, because when you first start out, you know, you get a lot of rejection. Yeah. You try out for things. You really want something really, really badly, and it's like, am I going to get it? And then you don't get it. I would usually go out and get drunk. That would be my answer to that. I don't drink anymore. I've been sober now.
We're going to talk about that.
You know, I've been sober like 30 years, but at the time I used to use that. And so I think over time, I developed what I turned my fear into faith. Faith, not religious faith, but faith that I am in the right place. Things happen for a reason. There are roles out there that have my name on them, and the other ones I'm not going to get. You know, so I just have to have faith that I will get the right roles. And I do an audition now, and I go, you know, if I hear about it, great. If I don't, oh well, you know, I move on. But it took a while. It's not easy. Rejection sucks.
Yeah, I know. I see that on Grindr every day. It's like, one more, please.
One more swipe.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being sober, because we always need to ride home after the show. Drive us home.
Oh,
so sweet.
I've got my car. So
there you go. We don't. It's so funny to have you in the room while hearing your voice,
right?
Because you hear all the inflections from your different characters, and it's so colorful.
I kind of forget I have that effect on me.
No, you too, but you're so colorful, and that's why your fans, you know, they fix themselves to you so much.
Thank you.
JP, raised in a little town by Scranton, raised in a very Catholic home, Byzantine Catholic, by the way, for those that know Catholics. Yet you were dressing up like Carol Channing for your family, performing in the living room. You were, you were going to see shows. Entertainment was very much part of your life. What was that dichotomy like, having this entertainment sassiness, which we know was queer energy, along with this strict environment? That must have been kind of difficult trying to celebrate that part of you, but then being stifled.
Oh, sure. And I think there's so many queer kids that are like, I must be adopted. This can't possibly be my actual family. And I knew that I was adopted. So I was like, well, this, you know, and it's funny. I would tell my best friend when I was growing up that my birth mother was Elizabeth Taylor.
Would that have been great?
Right?
Yeah.
I was convinced, you know, and I would come up with different stories. Sometimes it was like an Italian peasant woman from like, you know, but Elizabeth, once I saw the White Diamonds commercial, I was like, you know, I was like, those diamonds, those were mine. Yes. Like that's my my inheritance eventually. Yeah. So there was always that element of feeling othered and being able to chalk it up to my adoption, and I don't think that alienated me so much from my parents as it just sort of set a boundary of just like, okay, I know that I am who I am and they are who they are, and it's not that there's anything wrong with me. It's just we're just mismatched, and we're just, you know, figuring it out. But there, you know, when you're growing up Byzantine Catholic, and I was an altar boy and all of that stuff, like, yeah, there was so much shame and guilt and around who I was and feeling that. Yeah, it took a long time to really work through it. I went to the Catholic University of America for 2 years so I was just continuing the cycle.
Yeah.
And it took a while to to really come to grips with where I stood with my family, where I stood with my faith, where I stood with my sexuality, and eventually my gender identity. It's all been an ongoing process.
Now, what kind of kid were you, though? Were you like a theater kid? Were you the choir kid? Were you the nerd? Were you the jock? What was happening?
Yes, minus the jock. No. The other three, yes. I mean, small town, you kind of glom onto any artsy activity there is, especially to get out of gym class. So it's like, I'll be in the choir room, I'll be in the band room. Yeah.
I did ballroom dance just to get my PE credits.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Change with the other boys? No.
Yeah.
That's terrifying.
No, absolutely not. Far too reckless.
Yeah.
So yeah, I did choir, did drama club, and for summer programs during the year, my dad had to deal with me that I could pick something that I wanted to do, but I had to do something that he wanted me to do.
God.
So I had to do baseball camp, but then I got to do Missoula Children's Theater, or I wanted to take an Italian class, and he was like, "Fine, but you also have to take typing." Which I know.
Well, they're kind of dipping the purpose. Like, dear Elizabeth Taylor, I am your son.
Yeah.
Just 9 to 5.
Yeah.
Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah.
I could see you as a secretary, like a very sassy secretary.
Oh yeah. No, I would be the one that's always like, "Had a girl, Barb."
Yes.
Yeah.
Or just like it was a Devil Wears Prada, the girl that's at the beginning or whatever. She's like at the desk, just like next.
Yeah.
But talking about your adoption, you did a one-person show, Donna Madonna, which is so brilliant. Can you share with our listeners what the concept of the show was?
Yeah. So, being adopted, I was about 23 when I decided to finally seek out my birth mother. I did not know anything about my birth parents up until that point. And I reached out to the Catholic, there's a lot of Catholicism along this journey, the Catholic institution that I was adopted from, and very coincidentally caught the woman who handled my adoption on the last day of her job.
How crazy is
She was retiring.
Wow.
So the only person I'd ever met who knew both women that I, could call mother, and eventually met my birth mother, who is a complete 180 from my mom that I grew up with. My mom is the Italian Catholic housewife. She's very delicate and doting. She's very Donna Reed-esque. And my birth mother was much more like Madonna. She was a fashion designer and, was married to a London actor. And she just had a whole other cosmopolitan sort of vibe about her. And of course, in that very first meeting, I just dropped that I was gay. And she was like, "Oh, I know."
She's like, "You're my son."
Right.
Of course you are.
I'm fully aware.
She'd cry if you were straight. She's like, "Oh, no, I'm a straight son."
What have I
That's
done?
the worst news ever.
I gave you up for a reason.
That's a different show.
Yeah. So there was a point where, I'm a big believer when you have a slow period in your career, then find those creative things that you want to pursue. And I was like, I have this story to tell. I want to tell it as a solo show, not to, get a casting director to take notice or anything. But it was just like, it was just like, I want to write this love letter to these two women. And if they're the only two that appreciate it, cool. And it ended up being like a big deal. And I toured to multiple Fringe festivals. I did an Atlantis cruise. And, it was a thing.
Did they come see it?
Oh, they did. They did.
Did they come on the same night?
No.
Oh my God! Can you imagine?
They've met. They have met. They were both at my wedding. And they instead of having a wedding party, we had our families walk down the aisle, and both my moms walked down the aisle. Which was,
Aw.
And you look fabulous at your wedding, by the way.
Stop. Thank you.
Damn, girl. Bring it. So let's talk about your time at Catholic University in D.C.
Okay.
What kind of shows, because you were studying drama there, what kind of shows were you doing? Like Bible and Jesus musicals?
No, well, that's the weird thing. So the drama department at Catholic U was started by this guy named Father Gilbert Hartke. And
definitely gay.
Well, definitely like got the sort of like Jesuit flower power sort of like,
That's where the gold investments today.
Yeah, we're doing Age of Aquarius up in here, and he's the one that taught Susan Sarandon. So enough said.
Oh, wow.
Susan Sarandon went to Catholic U and then went on to do Rocky Horror. So
Insane.
yeah,
They just spit him out.
Yeah. This is what happens.
yeah, but. It was kind of its own little oasis, the drama department, where there were people of all different faiths there. It kind of had its own little reputation. And there were a few other departments at the school that kind of were isolated from the religious overhang. And also at the time, it wasn't super religious. It certainly has become more so since then. But at that time, it was sort of like, it's as Catholic as you want to be at any time. And our drama
Which is how most Catholics act, by the way.
Yeah.
They're Catholic when it's convenient.
Yeah, it's
For
cafeteria.
Christmas and Easter.
Yeah. Lily Poinsettia Catholics.
California Catholic.
Yeah.
Now, were you able to explore your sexuality and your queerness during this time? Or was that still
I kind of buttoned it up because I found Jesus a little bit while I was at Catholic. And I think I was just looking for some sense. And also, the Catholicism that they were teaching was way different from the Byzantine Catholic I grew up with.
Yes.
It was so much more like, bang the tambourine and, we're all just feeling real good with the spirit. So it felt very welcoming. It felt very affirming. And I dabbled with celibacy. I dabbled with, feeling, when I first showed up, I also was like, I'm bi. And then I played with percentages like we all do at some point,
Yep.
85, 15, 95. Yeah. But it really wasn't until I was at Catholic for 2 years, then I transferred to USC. And that was where I actually started going to the Catholic Center there, and the priest at that time, like, he had icons on the wall of Maya Angelou and Harvey Milk and Gandhi.
So he knew what was going on.
He was very social justice oriented, and that really changed my perspective about what faith, religion, my sexuality, all of that meant. And it was weird that I studied so much like contemporary moral issue stuff at Catholic and then took the exact same class at USC, and it was just an entirely different perspective, partially because it wasn't taught by an 85-year-old nun, but
Was that transition hard? Because I did know that you left to go to USC. Was it hard to make that transition to kind of leave the East Coast behind, that personality? You started on the West Coast as a whole different person.
Yeah.
Or was it kind of a ticket to freedom?
Yes, the answer is yes. It was really hard. If there's one thing that I found the most valuable about Catholic was the really deep friendships that I made, and it was exceptionally hard to leave those people and to be farther away from my family.
Yeah.
But also, college felt like a great opportunity to dip my toe in LA. Growing up in Scranton, I was only 2 hours outside of New York, so that always felt like a possibility. But LA just felt like I need something to anchor me here to get started. So it was exciting. It was frightening. It was very sad, but it also ended up just being awesome. And I'm glad I did both, because Catholic University was despite the Catholic moniker, like, our drama department was so weird and bizarre, and we were doing Eastern European, ultra heady, theater, and USC was so much more contemporary, by the book, where this is what you're going to audition with, very businessy. Yeah. And it was nice to have both, because I was one of the few people in my class that actually knew how to read a sonnet. It was very, very disappointing.
We're talking about life changes. Lenore, back to you. Talking about big moves. You capture your journey from Australia, your long journey, by the way, to North America in your memoir. You tell the tale of a very emotional kind of splitting of family, splitting of generations. And like you said, you were about 8 years old. Was it hard to adjust to this whole new environment and literally leave, roaming around, the bush in Australia to this whole new kind of life? And at such a young age to make that transition too. Yeah,
but it's interesting because I have an adventurous spirit. And
clearly. Well, got killed by a spider, you're like, go away, spider.
Right. And so I'm always curious. And I think I get that from all of my family, really. They're all kind of curious about the world and other people and other cultures. And so I found it fascinating to be able to, at that young age, visit so many different places on our journey. And interestingly enough, I also want to go back to the whole Catholicism thing because my mom and dad were both brought up Catholic. And by the time I was born, they were both atheists. And so I was brought up as an atheist. And my grandmother, as I said, she was an atheist, but she was a pantheist. So, But my mom, she had been treated terribly by the nuns as a young girl. And I was reading in one of her things that she'd written. I found it when I was going through the house, because I bought the family house when my father passed away recently. And I found an essay by my mom talking about when she was young and being at a Catholic school in Sydney, and how the nuns used to beat the life out of kids. And she said there was this one little boy and he'd done something wrong. He was probably in grade 2 or 3. And the nun was joyfully beating the crap out of this kid. And she said she decided then and there that was it. She hated this church. She hated the religion. And she was never going to be involved with that. She was an amazing dancer. And so she won all kinds of awards for her dance as a young girl. And my grandmother used to take her to those places and play piano for them. Yeah, so my grandmother played piano for
my God, that is so special.
Right? And she said my grandmother gave her all kinds of inspiration and encouragement, but her father was always critical. Very, very critical. And he never came to her dance recitals, and he believed that children should be seen and not heard. And she said that he finally came to one of her dance recitals, and she was so excited that her dad was going to be in the audience. And when she went home that night for dinner, the only thing he said was, oh, I never laughed so hard in my life as I did at that dance show. Watching you, it was like watching the dance of the skeletons. Because she was very skinny and she was very aware of it. And she said it hurt her so much she decided she never wanted to go on stage ever again. And so between the Catholic Church and her father's criticism, she said she could never take a compliment because she never really believed anybody. Even when her mother was complimenting her, she thought she was overcompensating. So my mom and I have always had a very butting heads kind of relationship. We're both Scorpios. And I realize now that the criticism she constantly gave me probably came because that's what she got from her father.
Yeah.
Right?
It's passed down generation to generation.
Right? And so that generational trauma, it affects you in different ways that you're not even aware of, but it only was recently I discovered that. So throughout my life, I've had to deal with this constant critic on my shoulder going, who do you think you are trying to do that? Or why are you doing that? Or, you're not as good as everybody thinks you are. And if they only knew what you were really like, those kinds of things that my mother had said to me.
Almost like an imposter syndrome kind of
Yeah.
thing.
And she had said stuff like that to me when I was little. So I find the dichotomy of that is a very interesting juxtaposition to being honored and celebrated and all of that, because there's always this part of me that goes, oh yes, well, yes, but, yes, but. So the characters that I'm drawn to playing are very complicated characters. And that's why I love Rogue so much.
Which I love, because you look at your career and you've gone in so many different directions, pushing the envelope, challenging what you can do with your voice, with your acting, and with your characterizations, and having that on your shoulder, but still being able to do that is huge.
Pushing through the fear.
Yeah.
I'm fearful, but if I don't do it, do I ever want to be someone saying, oh, I wish I had tried when?
Right.
I don't, and that's why I always tell people, if you've got a dream, go for it. The worst that can happen is nothing. But if you don't do anything, nothing's going to happen. Right. So give it a shot,
So I want to know where your early entertainment influences came from. JP, we know that you were watching the divas and enjoying that. And I think you saw a production of Guys and Dolls that really affected you.
Okay.
So that was kind of like in your system, but you were running around, like we said, in the bush. So you were traveling all over the place. So where was your access to entertainment? What were some of your early influences?
Okay, so I would go in the bush with my grandmother. And there were those huge snakes there too, by the way, one that lived under the house. And she said, oh, they're fine. They just eat all the rats and mice and whatever. Children, no, it was a carpet snake. She said, it's safe. Anyway, whatever.
There's huge spiders in the outhouse. What is going on in Australia?
They just eat the seagulls or whatever.
It's Australia. But when I was in the city, in Sydney, my mom enrolled me in ballet. So ballet was my first in.
Got it.
So I was 4 when I started doing ballet. And they would take me to the ballet on Saturdays and leave me there by myself. I must have been 5, 6, 7 going to the matinee, watching the Royal Australian Ballet do Swan Lake. I saw, people might not know these names now,
Nureyev.
but Nureyev, yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
Rudolph Nureyev and Margot Fontaine,
Yeah.
two of the greats, do Swan Lake. I mean, you know, so being in a theater, watching and listening to the rustling of the papers, the chocolates, and everybody all excited, and then, you know, everybody's expectant, and then the lights go down and everybody gets quiet, and then the lights come up and the attention is riveted on stage. I liked that. I definitely liked that idea of the attention. And then the costumes and the music and the emotions, I just went, oh yeah, someday that's going to be me up there. I thought maybe I would be a dancer, but I wanted to be a ballerina at the circus. I wanted to be one of those women doing points and turning around on a horse, scalloping around. That's
just doing the most.
That was my idea, a ballerina at the circus. But eventually, when we moved to Canada, there was no dance classes, no acting, no singing, no nothing. And so I auditioned for Guys and Dolls in grade 10.
Funny.
And my mom and dad said, you'll never get a role. You know, maybe you should just sit back and let the other girls, the older girls, they'll get the roles, and you don't have any experience or anything. And I said, I've got just as much chance as anybody. And so I auditioned with 300 other girls and was cast as Adelaide.
Of course, Adelaide. Of course.
Of course, the harlot with the heart of gold.
A person could develop a cold. Of course. 100%.
Yeah, and that was the beginning. Once I got on there, my mother
seems
even
Adelaide.
said she didn't even know that was the same person.
Wow.
They were shocked. And we discovered I could sing, I could act. It was just kind of natural.
So let's talk about your time at York University in Toronto, because we know that politics and entertainment are huge parts of your life.
Yes.
And you studied political science and you studied drama. Where in your mindset were you thinking as to what your career was going to be during university?
Well, I wanted to be an actor by that time.
By then you had made the
I had
choice.
made that decision, but I was always interested in politics because my family always talked about politics. My grandmother and grandfather talked about it around the table. My mom and dad talked about it. My grandparents belonged to the Workers' Party, which was, you know, the Social Democratic Party, really, of Australia. And my great-great-grandfather established the first miners' union, Miners' Federation in New South Wales. He was from Scotland and was a miner, and he saw all the atrocities and taking advantage of workers, and, you know, and he started the first miners' union. So we were very much of that ilk. And my grandmother always talked about it with me, about the different types of politics in the world. And so I was fascinated. So every time I did a job and got paid as an actor, I would go traveling to a country and check out their culture, their spirituality, and their politics to see what system worked the best, in my opinion. And when I was invited over to Sweden to do a play there, with a social democratic government where everybody got a guaranteed annual income and people were looked after from cradle to grave, really. 92% of the workforce is unionized. I went, this is the way forward. This is the way it should be. So when I did move back home to Nova Scotia after 30 years of being an actor, and was asked to run for politics by the Social Democratic Party of Canada, called the New Democratic Party, I went, sure, why not? What have I got to lose, right? Again, my sister said, you'll never win. My mother said, oh, don't do it, you're crazy. My dad said, go for it. You know, what have you got to lose? Go rogue, you know?
Yeah.
So that's what I did, and I won, and what they called a Zann slide. So
Yes.
yeah, and then I won 3 more times after
Yeah.
that, including finally federally, and was able to introduce a bill an act to address environmental racism, which is now the law in Canada. It passed in 2024.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And that started because my grandmother, when I lived out in the country, there was an old lady that lived beside us on, I realize now, on an indigenous reservation called Mrs. Ping. Yeah. And she was this lovely old black lady, and she had a family of like all these 10 or 11 kids that had been abandoned by their moms. And they were my friends. And we'd run back and forth between my grandmother and their grandmother, and they'd both tell us stories and stuff. But people used to throw garbage in her yard. And they'd be driving by and they'd throw garbage in Mrs. Ping's yard. And I said to my grandmother, why do they do that? Like, that's so mean. And my grandmother said, because they're racist. And they think that just because of the color of their skin, they're less important than we are, than white people. And I never understood that. So years later, when a woman came to me, talking about environmental racism when I was in politics. And she said, there are all these places where, the disproportionate number of toxic dumps, landfills, and corporate polluters that are placed on or beside racialized communities of color, it's disproportionate and their health outcomes are different. So she said, we need to do something about that. I went, I get it. And so I said, I'm going to introduce a bill. So I introduced the bill, and it took me 10 years to get it passed, but took 10 years, switching parties eventually, and also going federal rather than state. Right. And we got it passed. So
you are a superhero.
Well, it's got to start with one step, and you just keep your eyes on the prize, and you just keep going forward.
Besides Rogue being such a big part of your life, Marilyn Monroe has been a huge part of your life.
Yes.
One of your major first early roles was playing Marilyn in a rock opera.
Yeah.
And then you stayed with the Marilyn persona, who she was on stage and on screen, but also who she was behind the scenes. You really affixed yourself with her throughout your whole career, playing her in different iterations.
Yeah.
What was it about Marilyn that you just globbed onto from the very beginning?
Well, I didn't know anything about her when I was first asked to play her. I was only 19.
Yeah, so young.
And I had just done small roles. And so I didn't really know anything about her. So I read everything I could about her life. And I looked at lots of pictures. I didn't watch her movies because I didn't want to do an imitation. Mm-hmm. I didn't want to be like a female impersonator type. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to really show her essence. And so that first show, that's what I did. And I showed that she became a persona of herself. She wasn't really Marilyn Monroe. She was Norma Jean Baker, who deep down had all these critics on her shoulder going, who do you think you are? And you're just a little nobody and all that kind of stuff. She had to overcome that. And so she became this persona. And she would do that in front of the camera or in front of men that she wanted to impress. But when she was just by herself, she was different, and she wanted to read books, and she wanted to learn about the world, and she was fascinated, and she loved Ella Fitzgerald. And she said, that she wanted to get Ella Fitzgerald performing in front of white audiences, because at the time it was segregated. And so it was Marilyn Monroe who went to an owner of a club here in Hollywood.
Coconut Grove.
The Coconut Grove, thank you. And she said, if you put Ella Fitzgerald on the stage, I will show up every night with my entourage. I'll have a group of people. The press will go wild.
I've never heard the story.
And you'll have a hit show. And that's what happened.
Wow.
And Ella Fitzgerald said later, Marilyn Monroe was a woman ahead of her time, and even she didn't know it. Wow. That's an exact quote. So I wanted to use that. So years later, I was asked to play her again in another show. Then years later, I decided to write a one-woman show about her and do it in New York. And so I used stories like that to show she wasn't just a dumb blonde. I loved the idea that here was this vibrant, passionate woman who was being constantly tried to be stuck in little boxes. And she was constantly trying to fight to get out of those little boxes. But it's really hard when you've got Hollywood and the world saying, no, we don't want to see the smart Marilyn. We want the dumb blonde.
Yeah.
Right? And I got to say, one of my earliest young friends in my young life was Craig Russell, who portrayed 26 different females, stars. He became them. He sang. It wasn't lip sunk or anything. He put the wigs and the makeup and the costumes, and he became these 26 different stars. And he and I met when I was 20, right after I'd done Marilyn, and he saw me do my Marilyn at an awards show in Toronto, the first film awards in Canada. It was 1980. And he went, I'm never doing Marilyn Monroe again. And he just took me.
So it's 25 after that.
Yeah, he took me under his wing, and he brought me to Hollywood the first time, and he showed me the underbelly of Hollywood in 1980.
Wow.
We had a limousine. He bought matching mink coats. He cut his hair short and blonde, and he went around and told everybody that he was my mother. You know, and we had the best time. He had all the young men lined up, and the cocaine and champagne, cocaine, roses. And this was pre-AIDS.
Yeah.
So I had a good time. Let's just say that. And I'm still here to tell the tale.
You've also talked about your relationship with Marilyn, especially turning age 36, and you talk about this in your book as well.
Yeah.
Can you share a little bit about what happened and how you kind of changed the course of your life at that point?
Thank you. You know, by the time I was 36, I realized that I had a problem with drinking. It did numb me. It was like I was self-medicating. And because I had studied Marilyn Monroe, I kind of recognized the signs, because she died of a drug and alcohol overdose at the age of 36. And she was very lonely. And I realized I was really lonely too, and that I was moving around a lot, and it's kind of like a rolling stone gathers no moss, you know, like you could be whoever you wanted to be, and you didn't have to get too close with anybody, because God forbid they might find out who you really are and dislike you, kind of the way I had been brought up from my mother. And so one day I was in a hotel in Los Angeles, and I started vomiting my own blood into the toilet first thing in the morning. And my first thought was I was happy, because I wanted to die. I wanted to destroy myself. I hated myself deep down. I didn't know why anybody would like me at all. I really just, that side of my personality had been taking over. And so all of a sudden, though, I kind of was looking at my own blood, and I went, this is pretty depressing. The first thing I do every morning is see the bottom of a toilet bowl. How depressing is that? And then I went, you know, it would be very easy to just kill myself, but maybe the braver choice is to live and to face my fears, to face old age. You know, I think a lot of us are afraid of growing older. I'm afraid that you're going to be a bag lady on the street pushing a shopping cart, afraid of not being successful, afraid of never having someone to love you, afraid of so many things. And I went, you know, I think the braver choice is to face all those fears and to live. And suddenly I just went, because I'm not religious, I just said, okay, universe, I give in. I can't do this by myself anymore. Take me away. I'm yours. Please help me take away my pain and take away my desire for alcohol. And it did.
Wow.
I had like an epiphany. I had a moment of spiritual awakening, and I got up off my knees and I called AA. And they came, and this beautiful Black woman, Amanda, came and picked me up the next morning at 7 a.m. in the morning and took me to my first AA meeting on Martin Luther King Boulevard.
Wow.
And there, I was the only white person at the meeting, and there was an old man speaking at the podium, old Leon. And he looked at me, and I looked at him. I was like about 110 pounds by then. I was all sopping wet, sweating, you know, kind of shaking because I really needed a drink. And he looked at me and I looked at him, and it was like we knew each other. And it reminded me kind of Mrs. Ping and my first friends in Australia. And he looked at me and he started telling his story. And it turned out he'd gotten sober 30 years ago that very day in the middle of the Watts riots, which was a race riots in Los Angeles, for those who don't know. And he said, a white woman came to him and said, "You're in pain, aren't you? Are you ready? Do you want to get help?" And he went, "Yes, I'll do anything." And she took him by the hand, and he said they walked hand in hand to her car at a time when whites and blacks did not walk down the street together. And she took him to his first AA meeting. It was an all-white meeting. And he said they loved him back to health. And he said, they taught me that I didn't love myself and I didn't know how to love myself. And they said, we will love you and until you learn how to love yourself. And they did. And he said, and that was 30 years to the day of his sobriety. And that is my 30th anniversary as well. I have never had a drink ever since then, because they taught me how to love myself and they took care of me. And they said, yeah, you don't know how to love yourself, but we love you and we're going to teach you. And that's how I got sober.
Wow, congratulations. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you. It just felt meant to be.
Yeah.
You know, it was like the yin and the yang, you know, it all came together. So now when I can help others who are suffering, I say, oh yeah, it's much better. Life is better. I don't need alcohol. I'm a party girl. I'm still a party girl.
You are, I can tell, girl. And you're going to drive us home, by the way.
I can start the party and I'm the last one to leave.
I can attest.
We just did it in San Diego. But I don't need to drink to do it. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing.
You're welcome.
All right, we need to take a breath and we need to dive into X-Men or else the X-Men fans will kill me.
They got you at speed dial.
Yeah. But let's just shift a little bit as to how you got into the voice industry. JP, you've talked about how when you were acting, you were getting called in for screen parts, like always the gay stereotype and whatnot. But that voice acting got you into roles that you were the alpha, you were the power top, you were like the hero, like all of this stuff was going on. So how did that kind of shift into the voice industry? How did the voice industry come calling?
So growing up, I was under the assumption that voice acting was not a real job. It was something that only famous people who had on-camera jobs were allowed to do as a perk.
Right.
Thank you, Robin Williams. It's your fault. And I, being the pearl-clutching kid from Dunmore, that's sort of the assumption that I came with all the way into my college career. And luckily, I had my one of my professors at USC, Kelly Ward, who taught musical theater, but also is an animation director still. He disabused me of that notion. He's like, or you could just take some classes, get an agent, you can. It's not that hard. It's hard, but it's not that hard. So I started doing that, and I was working grocery delivery. I was one of the original Yummy delivery boys. When Yummy first opened, I was one of the first. And when you're pinching your pennies to spend on your career, it was either like, okay, am I getting headshots? Am I taking an on-camera workshop? Am I taking a voiceover class? And I just found I was just getting more traction with voiceover, and that I had a manager who represented me for on-camera, and at a certain point, he was just like, "Do you still want to do this? You don't go to any workshops. You don't do any of the recommended things. You don't And I thought, no, I don't. I just, time after time, I would go in for a Slim Jim ad or Doritos or Bud Light, and I would swish my way in, and they'd be like, and no, no matter what my voice was doing. Right. I was never comfortable in my body. I was never, because I was always it was so easy for me to code switch my voice. My body was just like, I don't know how. Not with this ass. So, so it was always a challenge, and I remember I had this class at USC. It was a joint class between the theater students and the film students, where the film students learned how to direct and the actors learned how to take direction. And me and another actor, we were in one of the scenes from Good Will Hunting, a Ben Affleck and Matt Damon scene, and I was Ben Affleck, and I think they were supposed to have 3 scenes go on that day. There was only ours because I had a nervous breakdown in class. I was sobbing, and our acting teacher had to talk to me about, because I was just like, I'm just swishing all over the place and nobody believes that I'm straight at all. And she was like, who says that Ben Affleck's character is straight?
Right.
And I'm like, oh, okay. And it became a whole therapy session. I don't know if anybody benefited from it other than me, but that became a lot of it is really accepting that. And it's become a lot of my advocacy in voice work is so many of the elements of the voice that we, you've probably seen that marvelous documentary, Do I Sound Gay?
Yeah.
There's so many little attributes that we associate with certain identities and stereotypes, but that don't necessarily correlate, especially all the time. And part of the advocacy work to make sure that more queer people are working, not just playing queer roles, but also cis and straight roles, is that there's so much variety in the queer voice print. A trans woman doesn't necessarily sound a particular way all the time. There's such a stereotype that there's a non-binary sound. What is it? I'm like the Borg,
right.
All your base are belong to us. It's there isn't an androgyny about non-binary. There's so many different qualities, and people get more casting opportunities when we start to remove that idea of what that sound is. In the same way that, so QueerVox, we work hand in hand a lot of the time with Voices of Global Majority and the Disabled Voice Actors Database as our sibling orgs. And, we kibitz and bitch with each other about what the stupid people are doing this time. And a lot of the times from the Voices of Global Majority, they'll talk about auditions that have urban sound. And it's voiceover. You never see the person's face whatsoever. And it's for McDonald's, and it's like, well, what are they trying to say? I'm like, exactly what they're trying to say.
Exactly.
What are they trying to say?
They're trying.
I don't get it.
They're specifically
what's an urban
sound? They specifically want a sound that somebody would, to their ear, would recognize. Oh, that's a Black person,
right?
And ergo, I trust that person as a fellow Black person. That I want that double Whopper or whatever, or Big Mac.
But nobody says Black voice, but they say urban.
Urban.
Yeah.
Yes. Or they say ethnic, which means Mexican.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
Yes. I've gotten that sometimes because I can't do a Mexican. I can't even speak Spanish, much less
Roll your
do
R's.
Mexican.
Or if they want a sassy woman,
Right.
they want Black or Latina. Or if they want a sassy man, then, well, we know what that means.
Yeah.
So,
But they have to hide behind these terms like urban,
see.
to make it PC, but you know exactly what they want.
Right.
and and there's there was somebody in QueerVox, our organization, who I think she was a Black woman from Phoenix. And she was like, I sound like a Valley girl. I have no identifiable accent that anybody would think as African-American vernacular English. So should I even bother auditioning? And we're like, yeah, because they're asking for you. Because this did say, looking for a Black voice. You are a Black voice. And if what are they going to do? Say no, you're not.
Right. Right.
So that's just so much of the advocacy is. What was the original question?
How you got into the whole voice?
Yeah. So, one of the big things that really refocused my brain about voiceover was my dad passed away, and so I was back home in Pennsylvania helping my mom, and I had booked out with my Los Angeles agent, and I was like, we're going to need a few weeks, so I'm not going to be able to audition. But I also have an agent in San Francisco, and I get a couple things from them periodically, and in grief or whatever, I forgot to call them and tell them that I was booking out. So about 2 weeks into being with my mom, I got an audition from San Francisco for this character called Wolfgang for this video game franchise called Skylanders. And he was this undead, leather pants wearing rocker werewolf with an Aussie accent. And I just looked at it, I was
As
like,
one does.
Yeah, your typical archetype.
Yeah, right.
And I just looked at it and I'm
Lenore,
like,
what does it sound like? You were in the bush.
yeah. So I figured, why not? So, and this was done where we didn't have I didn't have my mic with me. I didn't have a recording studio. So I found this recording studio, which was mostly used for Christian death metal. My mother sat in the corner, was praying her rosary. And I auditioned for this part, and I booked it. And it felt like, I'm not going to say it was my dad's gift to me or anything like that, but it did feel very validating that it was sort of like a welcome back into like, that this is my path, this is my trajectory. And also a reminder that I can play something that an on-camera casting director or producer might never consider me for live action, but absolutely could do with my voice.
And if you see the figure, if you see the animation of it, I mean, it's like, oh, okay,
Sure.
But you made it work, girl.
Yeah. I mean, one of my happiest things is whenever I go in to do a job and somebody has never met me and they see this girl and they're like, I never expected that voice to come out of that body.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, well, that's on you.
Yeah.
You're like, that's on you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Lenore, let's talk about your relationship with the X-Men series. Like we said, you were in the original animated series, debuting in the US in 1992 for 5 seasons. Did you have any relationship with the comic book world or anything before this audition?
No, none of us did. The only one in the original show that knew the comics was Beast, George Buza. And he said he bought the first X-Men comic, I think it was in 1965.
Wow.
He was 12 or something. So when we got the auditions, we didn't know what it was for. It just said X Project. It didn't, or Project X. It didn't say what it was. But when I saw the drawing of Rogue, I went, I could do that because she was sassy. She definitely was sassy. And they said they were looking for a woman with a deep, husky, sexy voice who could do a Southern accent. And I'd played a number of Southerners on camera. This was only my second animated series that I'd ever auditioned for.
I feel like Rogue has become one of the most iconic voices in animation.
Yeah.
Well, thank you,
it's
Sugar.
Yes.
I appreciate
You're from
that.
Australia and Canada. What the hell do you know about
I
Southern
know.
gentility? And here you are.
That's because I don't hear any Australian in you really at all.
Well, people always like to say, oh, you must be from down south, are you? And I go,
Right.
oh, yeah, I'm from really far down south. I'm from Australia.
But there's a whole subsect. I dated an Australian for about 8 years. There's a whole subsect of Australians that love Southern American culture.
Right,
So they-
right.
Blanche Devereaux. Hello, we gays love.
Right.
Well,
love
we
it
like
as well.
barbecue. Throw that shrimp on the barbie.
What was that call like when they asked you to come back, but not just play Rogue 30 years later? You're playing Rogue right after the events of the series that you played.
It was amazing. I mean, I just sort of, I'd been in politics for 12 years
Right.
when they called. So I had just come out of that a month before.
Crazy is that?
just like
Yeah.
a sandwich, just go back
Yeah,
into
exactly. And so I got a call saying, would you audition for this thing? And they sent me the script, and I went, oh, this is... They did the same thing. They called it something
it.
else.
But you knew it was this time.
Well, it was lines I had done already 30 years before.
Wait, they made you audition for your
Yeah,
own
yeah.
role?
That's crazy.
Yeah,
Did
yeah.
you think it was just for sure to actually make you
No, I think they
audition?
probably wanted to make sure that you still sounded the same.
Right,
Yeah,
yeah, that's true.
some
too.
I don't
Voices-
blame them for that
voices
because
do change.
I could have been smoking and drinking
Yeah.
this whole time and
Yeah.
sound, like a different person.
Thanks, Sugar.
Yeah, very sugar.
I'm Rogue.
Right?
Am I thirsty still?
But I think because I had quit drinking 30 years before,
Probably
You know,
so.
that's
and I
probably
never
why
did
your voice is
smoke.
maintained.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, it was great when I got the word. They invited me on a Zoom call then, and they just went, "Oh, Lenore, we just love your voice, and we're huge fans. Would you please come back for a whole new generation of kids
Yeah.
and play this superhero?" And I said, "You had me at hello."
That must have been surreal, though.
It was
And especially you have gone through so much in your life between the 2 iterations.
for sure.
What new elements have you brought to Rogue from your own personal life?
Well, the thing is, the main thing I had to focus on was that it was only a short time after the last season
Right.
that this takes place. So she hasn't gone through a whole ton of new things, the character. She's still the same person. So I needed to start there. But of course, in the course of season 1,
There's a lot happening.
she goes through a lot. And for that, I was able to bring stuff from my own life and bring it and put it into my performance.
Did you have any trepidation of going back to a character to be like, oh, I'm going to be pigeonholed as this now?
No,
No.
I don't really
30 years
care.
later,
I mean,
I've passed government bills.
the interesting thing coming back to Hollywood now is that I don't have to prove anything. I don't have to prove anything to myself is the main thing. It used to be that you wanted to be successful and you wanted to be famous and you wanted to make money and you wanted to do this, and this. And now I'm just going, it's all gravy. I mean, I have lived 10 lives. I've lived more lives than a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs. I mean, so I've done a lot of things and now I'm just comfortable in my skin. And whatever comes and whatever other roles I play, it's great. Like I did a role on a TV series called Revival, which is right now it's on Peacock, but it's being sold to Netflix. So it's going to be on Netflix the end of August. And it's live action and I have a recurring role. So it's based on a comic book series by Tim Seeley, who also wrote Rogue in the Savage Land comics recently. And I have another role in that. And she's funny. She's a dispatch officer at a sheriff's station. And one day the dead decide to come back to life and take place in society. And so she's dealing with all that kind of stuff. So it's a lot of fun.
I can't wait.
Yeah, it's called Revival. But so whatever roles come now, I'm open to them and I'm available. And my agent is, no, I'm just kidding.
Sell it, honey. Sell it.
Yeah.
And JP, you also have this huge collection of credits for voiceover. You played iconic characters like we run down like the Joker. I mean, come on, Willy Wonka, Wile E. Coyote, all of this. But Morph is kind of the most like naked character for you because your voice is you.
Yeah.
You're not affecting your voice. It's you. And we know the obvious connections between Morph, this fluidity and this change and personality changes, how we choose different paths in life. How was it coming to this character being so nude, so to speak? Because you're not hiding behind any voice.
Yeah. It's funny you put it that way because Morph is literally nude. Like all of his clothes, everything it's just his body. It's when I read the character description, this was during the pandemic when, like a whole bunch of us, we had a moment to sit and breathe and come to know ourselves better. And that's when I came out as genderqueer. And then this role falls into my lap and just reading about a character that was genderqueer and queer in the 90s, pushing through trauma with humor. And it was like, okay, me. So I really didn't feel the need to put on a voice or gild the lily. And unlike a lot of the other characters, there wasn't a voice print that they were really particular about. They wanted the laugh that Ron Rubin did in the original, but they weren't so particular about it being a sound-alike. Mm. So, I just imitated the laugh, and other than that was just doing me. And I think what was so valuable was during parts of lockdown when, we were still isolated, getting scripts about Morph. I was learning more about myself as I was learning about them. And we really kind of informed each other. So I consider them sort of an avatar of my personality a little bit, that there's so many things that they go through that I feel very precious about and very protective of, because it feels like a lot of my own journey, just, minus the shape-shifting and sci-fi wackiness.
God, if I could shape-shift for a day.
If you could turn into any one of the X-Men characters, who do you turn into?
Yeah.
Oh, God. Well, it's gotten to the point, I was talking to one of the writers, and they were talking about how they're currently writing on season 4, and
well, I like that the show, your character turns into characters that aren't X-Men. They kind of you kind of allow the cameos. Had Deadpool and the Thing, and like other characters from other
Thor,
Thor,
Hulk.
And so you don't even have to turn into the X-Men.
Exactly, and they were talking about like, it's always like, it was fun for a while, but now it's becoming a challenge to try to pull out like, well, who could we have them turn into now that's going to be exciting and interesting? I'm like, you need to go to celebrities. I'm like, look, it's Madonna, it's Cher. Like, it's just
Marilyn Monroe.
Yeah, it's the 90s. Like, have me turn into all the Spice Girls.
Weird Al.
Oh my God, that would be
Weird
funny.
Al.
Britney
Yes.
Spears. It's 97.
Oh, that's yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Morph would love Britney Spears.
yeah, and that's the thing. That is one of the things. It's like there was one time that in a script that Morph made a culturally referential joke, and the punchline was something about Elvis. And I was like, I think this needs to be Cher. Like, and I actually would love, and this is very much my humor as well, is if Morph was just dropping reference humor all the time, especially that nobody would understand unless they lived through 1997 or
because Morph would be a pop culture girly.
Oh yeah,
100%.
Yeah, like I think of Morph as like
all that
thinking
stuff.
about like where they are age wise. I'm like, oh, Morph is totally like a Eurythmics, Pet Shop Boys, like that gay, yeah.
When the first season of X-Men 97 hit, the world went crazy. And so I'm admittedly not the biggest Marvel fan.
I'm trying to clue him in.
It's not that I'm not a fan, I'm just not that educated, and it's not my first go-to.
Sure.
So when people say, oh, X-Men has a TV series, I'm like, oh, okay, another Marvel iteration. And I said, then it's animated. I'm like, okay, well, I'm not going to watch a cartoon. But then it hit, and it became so important to so many people across generations, from the young kids to people my age to people older than me. What is it? And then I watched season 1, and I watched it in like a day and a half, and I was like, oh my God, what is it about this iteration specifically that's affecting so many people?
I'll let you go first. what do you think?
Well, I think
as a newcomer to the show, what do you think?
I think a few things. First of all, anybody who did watch it in the 90s, it feels like a very reverential continuation, while also meeting those same people where they're at now. Like, you were a teenager or you were a preteen then, and now we're meeting you this many years later, where your sensibilities, you want some drama, you want some adultness, dealing with political issues and stuff that really resonate to you. And the show meets on all those levels. I think also for the newcomers, not only does it have all that stuff, but it's so baked with this just understood authenticity. Like, as for instance, for Morph, there's no very special non-binary episode for Morph. Morph just is.
And isn't that how it should be?
Right.
Yeah. And because Morph is played by me, written by queer people, animated by a really diverse group of people, like there's an inherent baked inness that if you are queer, you instantly get it, and if you're not, you still recognize the authenticity is there. The thing I always talk about is like, if you've ever watched the movie Coco, and you see the grandma pull off her chancla and throw it at a kid. Even if I'm not from I'm a Polish Italian. Like,
we all know chancla.
Yeah, but you instantly are like, that's a real thing. That is something that happens in people's lives. That is authentic storytelling, as opposed to when you see something. When we've seen animated media where people are just throwing darts of diversity, and it's not told from any authentic place. It's just like, this is the gay person.
Checkbox.
It doesn't resonate as authentic to the community it's supposed to represent, or the people who aren't part of the community, and they're like, what is this? Yeah. So I love that there's so many levels. I mean, just the arc that Storm went through in her 2 episodes of last season, 3 episodes, I guess. It was so baked in, of what this Black woman is going through without actually specifically saying anything or referencing historical figures or something. It just felt so specific to her. And I think that's one of the things that just makes the show so powerful for people. And something I wish that studios would re-recognize again in a time where DEI is just so frowned upon right now. That our authentic stories, when told well from the people that have lived those stories, that it resonates and it makes a box office. Mm-hmm. Like Wakanda Forever still did really well. Like, those they are still bankable stories, but we'll get there. We'll get there again.
People just want good stories. They just want good,
And to see
great
themselves
characters.
reflected.
Yeah, but even, like not even just that, like having like the well-roundedness of that, like that's why X-Men always does so well. I feel like because the characters are so well-rounded. There's so many different types of everyone that can, like even in the latest season, each episode is sort of separated into different groups, different teams, and it sort of reflects just sort of how much variety that these characters have.
And different perspectives there are in the world.
Yep.
And how they fight crime. Some of them are, like,
what they think
we need to kill the bad
but
people. Some of them are more, we need to save the bad people. Like, it's very,
So, Lenore, from your point of view, having been in the original series, why do you think this has made such an impact and such a big splash?
First of all, I think we need to remember it came from the comics.
Yeah.
So there are 60 years worth of comic book stories about the X-Men. And Stan Lee wrote those comics about the civil rights issues. And so that's where the show also takes place. And it's almost like we are the modern day mythology as well. So a lot of the stories are universal stories that you find in mythology. And mythology has a power that exists throughout the ages because it's universal and people can relate to the different characters and the different gods and the different demigods and the different mortals that the gods affect and all of that kind of stuff. I mean, why is the Odyssey on right now, right?
I've never heard that correlation. It makes perfect sense.
Right. So if you really look closely, many of the stories that are told in the comics, which then are picked up in the show, are mythological. And so I think we are like heroes for a modern age. We are the mythological heroes for young people. And the kids of the 90s, many of them, I mean, I have so many people that say, I was 12 and I fell in love with Rogue. She was my first crush. I'm like, oh,
Rogue was
so
a poster
sweet.
in many boys' rooms.
That's so sweet, right? So those guys and women are now, they're now adults. Many of them have children of their own. And now they're bringing their kids into it. So we have fans who are 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 on up through the teens. They love the show. And they either watch X-Men 97 first and then they want to go watch the original. Or the parents say, no, you got to watch the original first. And then they watch that. And then they're getting into X-Men 97. So I think the power of storytelling is mankind has always told stories. That's what we do. Whether it's around the fire, whether it's the corroboree, dancing out the hunt, whatever it is. And so
the stories from your grandma.
Right? The stories from my grandma and Mrs. Ping. Yeah. And I think that's what is the thing that lasts. That's the lasting thing. So it's great that now a whole new generation is getting to know these characters, getting to know the stories. And also, I'm now in Marvel Rivals, the game, playing Rogue in that. So we're meeting fans of the game, gamers, who didn't see either one of the animated series.
So weird how they're different cultures?
Right.
You expect them, they're all this. No.
Yeah. And now, because they love the characters in the game, now they're watching X-Men 97. So it's very interesting, but I think it's wonderful. And we have to remember that, our message has always been, we're in this together. It's okay to be different. Be your authentic self. And you have to learn to accept yourself as you are and accept others as they are, because we're all in this together.
And I think it's so important that these superheroes all have flaws.
Yeah.
They all have their
like
darker
the gods.
side. That's exactly right.
Right?
Now this is blowing my mind because I love mythology.
I do too.
It makes such sense. Yeah.
And all the different characters in the gods and in the myths, they have an Achilles heel.
Yes.
So do we.
Yeah.
So like Rogue's Achilles heel, her vulnerability, I think, is also her greatest strength. The fact that she can touch somebody and drain them of all their life force and become stronger herself and take on that power, that's a power. But it's also her Achilles heel because it means she's always lonely and vulnerable and wishing she could be something other than she is.
And don't we all feel that on some level?
Yes. And everybody wants to belong. That's the other human trait. Every single human being really wants to belong. What is the worst thing that you could do to somebody back in the old ages was to send them away from the tribe.
Yeah.
Go, you're banned, you're exiled. That, the shame, that was the worst thing that could happen. So I think even for all these people that are online, that are getting into groups to hate women or hate gays or hate anyone who's different color or nationality or ethnicity, they have found a tribe where they feel safe and strong in that tribe. But really, they're probably very lonely, and they don't really like themselves very much, or else why would they need to lash out at
They're
other
keyboard
people?
warriors. They're fighting behind their words.
Right?
Just, yeah. And even like with Morph, when you could morph into anything, but who is he then? If he's clay for everything, where's his identity? Where's who he is? Yeah,
and I mean, to that point, that's part of the way that this isn't canon, but the way I define why Morph has the gray face in this series and not in the original is that the human, quote unquote, face that he was taking out of the original series was a people pleaser. It was a code switch. It was to make the rest of the team feel comfy. And we meet gray face Morph when they're starting to feel like, okay, I'm accepted here. I can be totally myself, like blue ass Mystique is, So it's I think the difference between Morph this season as opposed to the first season is Morph was very much trying to reintegrate within this team, having just rejoined at the start, trying not to be the weird one, having been through a lot of trauma and maybe having tried to kill everybody at one point,
Having to regain people's trust.
Yeah, and just being the funny person.
Yeah.
And this season, and I think this is true for a lot of the characters that we see this kind of fleshed out at this season, it's more about how they separate themselves from the team, how they are a part of it, but still individuals and not so codependent and reliant.
Think on their own.
Yeah. I mean, especially with Morph's relationship with Wolverine which has been toxic.
A little tumultuous, yeah.
Yeah.
Don't we all have a Wolverine in our life?
Yes. Yes, we do.
A short, hairy man? Yeah, kind of.
He's not short, not in my life.
Well, Wolverine is short. Yes.
I know, but in my life.
Right. Not every Wolverine is Hugh Jackman.
Most aren't, actually.
Yeah.
We are running so over time. I have another page of questions. This has been such a great conversation. You being an X-Men fan, do you have any other questions?
Gosh.
You've been chomping at the bit. You're like,
I know, I'm just, no, like...
let's have on the show tomorrow. And I'm like, they have Comic-Con, everybody calm
my
down.
questions are more specific, and I don't want to get spoiler and stuff, because we are we're on episode 7, and we have a couple more weeks left of...
We have 2 more seasons, at least.
I know, and I just... what do you? Because Rogue has been through so much since season 1. Even with what happened with Gambit and then with Magneto. What do you want to What do you see for her character? What do you want for her character to grow into?
That's one of my questions too. Is what do you want your character to have gone through or achieve?
Well, without giving away any spoilers,
Right?
Rogue is hurting. She's still grieving. Whenever you've lost somebody that you really, really love, there's an empty kind of hole there. And sometimes we try and fill that empty hole with other things. Rogue, went on a vengeance tour for a while there. Rogue went rogue.
Yeah.
But did that make her happy? No. And then she's sitting by the fire with and Sebener, and she talks about love, and she says, I hope you find somebody someday that you love and that loves you. So she is continuing on this hero's journey, and I love the arc. I love where it's going.
Yeah.
And I think the fans will be very interested. She's going to be torn. She's going to have to make some very difficult decisions, and you're just going to have to wait and see what decisions she makes and what direction she decides to go in.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to follow up. Has the process of working on the show back in the 90s versus today, has it changed? Is it
Not really.
Not really. Yeah.
It's just, as an actor, you get into character.
Right.
I know her backstory.
Right.
I know what she's been going through. So I just read the script once, and then I go in the studio and I just do it.
like riding a bicycle, just get right back into
Yep.
it. Yep.
So I was going to ask, because when you did the show last, or when the series first came out, you had to record everything in your house, right?
Still record everything in my house.
So that's what I was going to ask. So how do you record stuff now?
I go in the studio.
Oh, but by ourselves. I mean,
Isn't that weird?
You've
Because the
recorded with
chemistry-
AJ before, right?
Yeah,
you're
once
always
or
by
twice.
yourself for the most part when you're doing
But the
voice acting.
chemistry is so like
I mean, that's
sizzling.
testament.
It's so weird to think that you
Right.
guys are totally separate.
That's testament to our director.
Right.
Like Meredith Lane is so good at stitching together all of these performances and giving us context so that it almost feels like we are reacting off the other person. And occasionally, like Magneto and Xavier, Rogue and Gambit, I think Jubilee and Sunspot at certain points
Right.
they have recorded together.
Okay.
Whenever it really matters for those intimate moments. But I mean, I've never recorded with Wolverine.
Really?
Yeah.
wow.
I don't even
there's
know
such
his name.
chemistry
No, I
there.
don't. No, Cal,
I didn't know what he looks like.
Cal is wonderful. We love Cal. Yeah.
One of my childhood friends growing up was Jean Vanderpill. I don't know if you know her name.
Mm-hmm.
She was the original Wilma Flintstone.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she
Okay.
was Rosie the Robot.
Uh,
So she would bring pictures, black and white. They'd be in suits and fully dressed.
Oh,
the
wow.
Flintstones, the four of them around one microphone doing their stuff. And
Right.
you would dress up to go to the studio.
Yeah.
I mean, it's Mel Blanc always used to dress him in a suit. He had a flower,
Yep.
like always.
But that was the
and
normal
he'd have a
thing.
cigarette in one hand and his oxygen mask.
Isn't
in the
that funny?
Those were the days.
Those are the days. No, I mean, I mean, the shows that I did get to do as cast records pre-pandemic. I mean, they're some of the best experiences.
No.
And so, for a young voice actor, I mean, I did a Wizard of Oz show that nobody saw. It was for the little kids, but I was recording with some Animaniacs and SpongeBob and Patrick Starfish and Lorraine Newman from SNL and all of these luminaries of voiceover every week. And we were just cracking each other up. And I learned so much. It was a masterclass. And I really wish that more up and coming kids had that opportunity, because you learn so much stuff that you'd never be able to pull from a classroom or just, online.
Or by yourself in a room.
But
Yeah.
because now everything's remote,
Yeah.
Oh, so from your end, what do you want most for Morph?
Yeah.
Um,
Him and Wolverine to have a moment.
no, I don't want, because I love
They're best friends.
I love that everybody was shipping after Wolverine was shitty to
Yeah,
Morph. They
right.
were like, well, Sabretooth clearly. I was like, why do you need Morph to get with all of these unwashed, unwell men? Like,
Yeah.
But isn't that the gay thing that
I
we do?
know,
We're
and
after
it's
the
just-
wrong men.
Yeah.
But that's why
they're
it shouldn't happen,
they're
because they shouldn't
self-identifying.
fulfill that.
Yeah.
Morph
No.
needs to find a Morphette or a Morpho.
yeah. So
I did like at the end of the last episode with I love that episode with Wolverine getting his claws back in that sense, but like how Morph reacted to all of that.
yeah, this guy tried to get us killed.
Yeah.
For what?
Selfishly,
Because you feel insecure about what your
And when he's
power
like,
is.
that makes me sad. When he said like,
Yeah.
that makes me sad. I was just like,
Yeah, totally. And I'd like to see Morph just more actualized and not be second banana. Like, they are their own person. They have their own adventures, their own villains, and their own, hopefully, love interests. But we'll see.
All right, we do have to wrap up. So just a final question, and then tell us where people can find and follow you. Lenore, I'm going to start with you.
Yes.
Having been with Rogue for decades, literally at this point, what have you learned most from her?
Wow. What have I learned from her? Just to always stand up for the people who don't have voices themselves, and to not be afraid of what can happen to you, to put your life on the line when you need to, because somebody has to do it.
Yeah. And where can we find and follow you?
You can follow me on Instagram at Lenore Zann, LenorezAnn, or on Twitter/X, which is at Zann Lenore, and on Facebook. That's basically it.
You're so adorable.
Oh, you're sweet. Thank you. I appreciate that.
This has been so much fun. JP,
Yeah.
where can people find and follow you? But what have you learned most from Morph?
I think when you're playing a shapeshifter and comes up the ideas of code switching a lot. And I think what's become most interesting especially when I've been talking to people about the difference between Morph and Mystique, is that Morph switches for power sets. Morph is using, to like be Hulk and punch somebody. It's not to do clandestine operations or duplicity for the most part. And I think that really just speaks to code switching a bit, that I've started saying that the code switching that I engage in isn't changing masks, it's changing makeup. I'm still myself. I'm always myself. But sometimes there are just different facets. Like you wear different makeup to the club than you do to church on Sunday morning
100%.
because that's not how we were raised. So I think it's finding that balance between being situationally appropriate, but also never being anything but your true self.
I like that.
And you can find me at JP Karliak on Instagram. My website is jpkarliak.com. And if you'd like to learn more about QueerVox, we're at QueerVox Academy on Instagram, queervox.org, or Nerdsvote is at Nerdsvote on Instagram, or nerdsvote.com.
Like I said, we have a whole other page of questions, but
Next time.
yes. Part 2 for season 3 and 4, because
To be continued.
Oh yeah, for Polaris. Yeah. This has been so much fun.
Yeah,
Thank
you
you
guys
so
are great.
No, you guys are great.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for sharing so much of your personal life. It really means a lot to us. And that's all, folks. It's always a grab bag of fun here every week on The Rocks. Thank you to our audience. Thank you to JT at TKO Public Relations. Big thank you to our engineer, Xavier. Xavier, welcome back.
Xavier.
I'm at Straw Hat Studios.
Please like, share, and subscribe so we can continue. I've been studying all day today.
We have a ride
Guys
home.
make me
It's fun.
nervous. Bringing this fabulous programming coming your way. Until next time,
Stay happy, stay healthy, stay sexy, and if you drink,
stay tipsy.
Cheers.
This has been another episode of On the Rocks. Tweet me and slide into my DMs on Twitter and Instagram at On the Rocks On Air. Find everything On the Rocks for free at OnTheRocksRadioshow.com. Subscribe, like, review, and share. Until next week, stay fabulous.